Yeah, so I think there are a number of challenges, as Myra pointed out, along the lines of several areas. I think, well, one that comes to mind is I think that most organizations, whether they want to or not, are at an inflection point. Data is coming at them so fast, it's so much variety in terms of how much of the data is,
Right.
and they've got to figure out how to manage it all. They're at an inflection point that they've got to make a decision now, and I don't think they understand that if you continue business as usual, I think it's going to bury you.
Yeah.
And it's going to become a huge cost burden to your organization. So you've got to look at some of these new techniques and tools to figure out how to harness it and get the insights in the new application areas and the benefits that we talked about before. I think there's also a little bit of a challenge in thinking. I think a little bit of entrenched thinking, or maybe a tendency to focus too much on one thing. I think the hype in the media is all big data equal big analytics equal Hadoop,
Right.
when in fact that couldn't be further from the truth. That you have to look at not only the analytics, and most of that is still traditional analytics.
Right.
You know, Hadoop is really round-off error right now if you
Right.
look at the market. It has a lot of potential. But you also have to pay attention to the high bandwidth to get the data where it's got to be at the right point at the right time to do the analytics against it. And you have to look at how do I manage all the content that I'm pulling from. So I think of it as a kind of a three-cylinder engine of analytics, bandwidth, and content, and all three have to be firing to get a workable solution out that's going to help you in your mission. And so the key is not to focus on one area at the exclusion of the others. You have to pay attention to it all.
Yeah, and that analytics thing keeps coming up. I mean, I'm hearing about new tools coming out that search like 1 trillion lines a second and things like that, and able to make sense out of things. So it's keeping up. I would think a lot of government agencies you're almost like overwhelmed
Right.
with the amount of things going on, and probably with the vendor community all wanting to get these new ideas in front of you.
Right.
And how do you do that?
I mean, it's estimated that the world consumption of data over the next decade is going to grow by a factor of 50.
Right.
Over that same time, network bandwidth is only going to probably grow by a factor of 10.
Right.
And headcount, if we're lucky, will grow by 50%.
Right.
So the biggest challenge is, how do we automate? How do we really apply a lot of better operational discipline?
Right.
Because the same number of resources in an operation are going to have to figure out how to manage orders of magnitude more data than they have in the past.
Well, I'm sure.